BeastNet podcast, sponsored in part by James Safety Services, OCR Buddy, and supported by the fitness community. Here we discuss all things fitness related, running, rucking, mental health and preparedness, and of course, obstacle course racing. Welcome to the BeastNet.
Perfect. All right. Hi, everybody. This is Lisa from BeastNet podcast, and today we're talking with Aaron Coffman. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I'm 55 years old, and I'm finally finding my niche in the competitive racing community. Either I've gotten better over the years, or I'm aging to where I'm doing well in that group. But I've been a long time runner. I used to run. I probably ran for about 25 plus years, mostly on the streets. Did a lot of local races. Did a lot of marathons. And I was kind of getting bored with the road running.
Yeah.
So I started doing just a little bit of trail running and really liked that. And I'd set a goal to do at least 10 marathons. And I met that goal. And so as soon as I did, I was like, all right, what's the next thing I should be looking at? And mud runs I was hearing about, and this is going back to 2015.
Yeah.
Started hearing a lot about mud runs, and I just thought, well, I want to look into what all the excitement is about these. And so I started looking around trying to find one. And my very first obstacle race was a Tough Mudder in Missouri in 2015. And I just loved the experience of that.
That seems to be like across the board what people do is they run one and it's like, oh my gosh, and they really love the experience. Were you able to compete with the Savage Races last weekend?
Yes, I did. I met up with a friend of mine, Thomas Hewling, and we drove up to Chicago. I'm in the St. Louis area, so it was nearly a 6-hour drive to get up there. But we both drove up there on Friday night, and then I was still skeptical if it was really going to go. I kept checking communications, and
yeah,
even when I got up there Friday night, I checked, and it's like, yep, it doesn't say anything about cancellations. So we went out there on Saturday morning, and it was really a great experience. It was so good to be back into the competitive obstacle course racing. My last race was back in February.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's been a while, huh?
Yeah. So it was really good to get back into it.
Did they do anything different for how the times are? Like, was there a festival area? Was there how did they run it?
Yeah. Well, I last ran a Savage race. It was this same race 2 years ago. And it was at the same location. This year, however, parking was great because the attendance was intentionally low.
Yeah.
So they would not allow you into the festival area until you were within 30 minutes of your start time. So there was a lot of people kind of hanging around at their cars, waiting for their designated time to go check in.
Yeah.
And then, of course, once you check in, they would do a COVID-19 questionnaire for you. They would take people's temperatures, and then if you didn't have a mask, they would give you a mask. And so once you got into line, you really had to wear a mask at all times until you entered the race corral.
Yeah. Wow, that makes sense. That's great that they took those kind of precautions. How was racing for you since you haven't raced since February? How did that go?
I felt overall pretty good. The challenge for this particular race was it was very hot. It was a hot, sunny day.
Yeah.
So my starting time, I did the pro wave, but even by 9 a.m. it was quite warm and full sun. A little bit of shade on the course here and there, but mostly it was in the sun. Yeah. Which has its pros and cons.
It does.
The con side is that it made the running more challenging.
Yeah.
And the advantage side is that the obstacles stayed dry.
Yeah.
Right.
So this was your 70th race, is that correct?
That is correct. Obstacle course race number 70.
Wow.
Well, really 69 and 70 because I did the pro and then I went back and did the Blitz open wave later.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations on that. And how many races did you do last year? Because I caught a glimpse of it and it seemed like you did 9 trifectas, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
How far did you travel to get all 9?
It was all in the U.S.
All in the U.S.
Although I did have some plans to do some traveling, but I had an injury that kept me from going to OCR Worlds in England last year.
Bummer.
Yeah, so it was all around the U.S. last year. Although the year before I had some races in Canada as well.
Did you go to Kimberly?
No, I did not.
There's a few of us that went to Kimberly and they pushed us on that one in Canada. So, what year did you go to OCR Worlds? Cause I can see the ribbon hanging behind you there.
Yeah, that was, I guess 97. So that was the second year in Canada.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was a great experience. I really love that. And, I intentionally, I didn't sign up in 2018, the first year in England, which of course they had perfect weather for.
Yeah.
But I thought I would go the next year, and then I got an injury a couple of months before that kept me from going.
Bummer. What was you transitioned from road race into trail racing? How was that for you? Because I know for me, road racing it kills my legs, but when I'm on trails, it doesn't hurt as bad. So how did that transition work for you?
Yeah, it went okay. I guess probably my biggest learning experience was switching to trails. Your running form becomes more important.
Yeah.
So, you can't get lazy. You can't kind of drag your feet a bit. You really need to keep the high knees going because you'll find, if you're not lifting your feet up, you're going to trip a lot more. So that was the biggest adjustment for me, which I think helped because it also helped me with a better running form.
Yeah. I trip over my own 2 feet just walking. So, Spartan just announced today that the rest of the 2020 season is done and Tough Mudder's already done that. How are you feeling with how races are going to go? Do you have any more planned, or is this kind of putting you on hold like everybody else?
Yeah, well, I was certainly looking to get a surge of Spartan racing in the second half of the year.
Yeah.
So, I was signed up for both Utah and West Virginia. Just because I was originally signed up for Utah, then it deferred, and I automatically was deferred there. And I'd already signed up for West Virginia, and then they fell on the same date suddenly.
Oh, no.
And so I had that dilemma, but I left them both intact. I was going to wait until one was certain for sure before I canceled the other one.
Yeah.
And because both were looking like toss-ups as to whether they would actually go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really disappointed. I had a number of races I was planning on doing this fall, but I can understand the frustration. From Joe DeSena's standpoint, trying to make that decision. He's going to get people angry. Whether he waits till the last minute or whether he does it earlier, whether he communicates well, whether he doesn't, it's a tough spot to be in.
It really is. I feel for all the companies right now because it's affecting so many, and hopefully next year when we get back to it, everybody's going to be like, yes. And everybody packs the venues and everything else, which would be great to see. Do you have any races that you enjoy a little bit more than others?
I'd have to go with the OCR World Championship and the North American Championship. Just the variety, the attendance from people all over the world or all over North America. It makes it seem like like an Olympic village.
Oh, that's awesome.
I just love it. Seeing athletes, wearing shirts from wherever their country is, and and in the excitement, there's the competition, but it's always the friendly competition.
Yes.
So, I just find it as a fantastic experience.
When you've been to OCR Worlds now, if I have heard correctly, they take obstacles from all the different races and kind of combine them, or do they have their own completely different obstacles?
That's right. They're bringing in, different obstacles. So, one of the really interesting obstacles to me, and when I first did the OCR World Championship, was the floating walls. And I learned they came from the Indian Mud Run.
Oh, wow.
And so I've been wanting to do that race so bad. I couldn't fit it in the last 2 years, but I signed up for it this year, and then it deferred. It postponed, but I could still make the second one. So I was all excited about it. Of course, it ended up canceling as well.
Where was it supposed to be this year?
I don't know if I can remember the exact pronunciation of that town. It was in Ohio.
In Ohio? Okay.
Yeah. Coshocton, Ohio. No. North of Columbus, I believe.
North of Columbus. Right on. So you went with mud runs. Was it straight into obstacles, or was it like some of the other like smaller, more fun runs, like the ones with the inflatable things, or was it just straight into like Warrior Dash, Spartan, and Tough Mudder?
Right. Yeah, I just went right into those. That first race I did, as I mentioned, was the Tough Mudder.
Yeah.
But then in 2016, there was a local race called the Battleground Mud Run.
Oh.
And that was near my house and not too far away in Missouri. And it was my first time ever doing a competitive obstacle race. And I ended up taking third in my age group. So I thought,
That's
maybe
awesome.
maybe I'm doing better here than I am with just straight running.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a great event. I loved it. It was on the small side in terms of attendance, but it had some really good obstacles.
That's awesome. Yeah. Do you have are there a lot of local races, or is it just kind of sparse in your area?
Yeah, it tends to be sparse. Well, that same Battleground location eventually lost out to Tough Mudder. So Tough Mudder actually took over that venue last year. I wasn't able to race. There was a Spartan race I had already signed up to, so I couldn't join in that first Tough Mudder. I was planning on doing it this year, but but I think that was it canceled not for COVID reasons. That was I think the bankruptcy issue that really got it there, and then the COVID-19.
Yeah.
They kind of had a double whammy. And Spartan did host a stadium race at Busch Stadium last year.
How was that?
I wish I could have gone to it, but it fell on the same date as another big event. It may have, if I remember right, it may have been North American Championship. I don't know, it was another big race going on that I was
chose
going
that.
to.
So have you been to Tahoe then for a couple of years, or have you gone to Tahoe at all before they
yes, I went last year.
How was Tahoe? Everybody seems to have different experiences at Tahoe. Some
you
are really
love
good.
It or you hate it or both.
Yeah. How was it for you?
For me, well, this was one of my first races after I had an injury last year. So I ran in West Virginia, which qualified me for it, but I could only do one race in West Virginia. So I was trying to recover for doing like Tahoe, and fortunately I felt good when I went out there. But when I got out there, I'd signed up for the Beast both days. Saturday was a Beast, but it was an open only.
Yeah.
So it was non-competitive. And Sunday was the World Championship. And of course, that's the big competitive one.
Yeah.
But as I was flying out there and checking the weather, it was looking pretty scary on Sunday.
Yeah.
And Saturday looked pretty good, at least in the morning. Saturday looked good. So I made the decision just on the way out there. I'm going to run the Saturday Beast, but take it very easy. I'll just enjoy the scenery. I'll walk the uphills. I'll get familiar with the obstacles.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I did that because it was really a good experience, no pressure at all. I got to really see my first time in the mountains there. It was really a good, no pressure kind of event.
Awesome.
And then the bad weather moved in, Saturday afternoon, and some people were out on the course when the bad weather hit and lightning and.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about that one.
and that also meant it was also bringing in the cold weather for the next morning.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so we ended up getting some snow, some very cold air, some high winds. It was a delayed start on that Sunday.
Yeah.
And it was really, really cold. and for somebody in the just a small hilly section of Missouri, I'm not used to the altitude or the mountains.
Yeah, the altitude can definitely get you. Even though I live in Washington, I'm at sea level. So when we do like Montana and even up in Canada, those races, man, that altitude, if you don't have a day or two to kind of adjust, it can kind of kick your butt. So had it do it to me. So with Spartan Races, have you done all of their races, including the ultras, the hurricane heats? Like how much of that have you done?
Yes, I did one ultra, and that was last year. And that, unfortunately, that's the race that I was injured in.
Oh no.
I pulled some muscles, and so I was out. I had to skip my next 10 races.
Oh my gosh, that's definitely some pulled muscles. Was anything torn, or is it just a lot of just overusage?
Yeah, well, it was kind of an injury from the prior week, the Chicago Spartan race. It was a real rainy, muddy location, and I ended up straining myself a bit on the Atlas carry.
Oh yeah,
trying to lift up that muddy, ball in the rain, and it was I strained myself a bit.
Oh man,
I actually still did well in the race. It just bothered me just slightly.
Yeah.
And the next day I did another Spartan race, and I was completely fine. So I thought it was nothing. But then the next week I went to Ohio, did the ultra, and when I was climbing up the 8-foot box, I guess I just tore the muscles the rest of the way.
No.
It was instant extreme pain.
Yeah.
And but it's being around all these tough Spartans. I tried to tough it out.
You suck it up, just start trying to get through. Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, and I ended up. I found it impossible to run. The pain just got bad if I tried to run. But if I stood there, if I sat down, if I walked slow, it was just a mild pain. So I ended up walking 23 miles to finish the race.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's brutal, but you finished.
and I tell you, when your ab muscle is injured and you don't want to pick up your legs, you can really be focused on the obstacles to make sure you don't fall to end up having to do the burpees.
Oh yeah, the burpees would not have been fun at all.
Right. So I struggled through it, made it through, and but anyway, my next big race was West Virginia. I did okay there. It was probably my worst placement ever. But then I had some more time to recover for Lake Tahoe, and I felt good out there as far as running.
That's awesome. So obviously, most of the race company, race affiliates and stuff, they are starting to drop their schedules for next year. Are you tentative about planning, or are you kind of trying to plan it out just so you can have an idea of what you want to do? Because everything's kind of weighing on what happens right now.
Right. Yes, I've definitely been looking to schedule. I've signed up for some Spartan races already. I have the season pass, and thankfully they extended that to next year.
Oh, perfect.
So I've been signing up for the races, especially a lot of my favorite ones. I love Southern California. I love Phoenix, Jacksonville. Big Bear, I just,
You love Big Bear? I've heard people
I do.
nightmares
Yeah.
about Big Bear. So you've done, I saw the list that you did, and have you thought about doing like the Battle Frog or any of those? Because they're more like the East Coast. We're trying to get them out here, but there's still more on that side of the country. Have you done any of those yet, or the?
Yeah, no, not the Bone Frog. It's been on my list, trying to work it in. A season pass with Spartan. I tend to go to more of those Spartan races.
Yeah.
And often it conflicts with the other ones I want to do. Like Indian Mud Runs sometimes, or and I found the case with Bone Frog. But I am eyeing the one. I think there's one in December that was still on in Mississippi.
Oh, perfect. That'd be great.
So hopefully that'll stay on, and I can make it to that one and get my first one in. And Savage Race is still on as well, as far as I know. That may be some challenges too for them, but there are some that are still on the schedule.
Oh, perfect. So are you planning to go to Worlds next year? I mean, how things
absolutely.
are planning out.
I was signed up this year. I had the travel arrangements made, and of course entry will automatically defer to next year.
Oh, that's awesome. Are there any races or anything outside of the U.S. that you would like to do or go travel to? Because they seem to have so many different races outside of the U.S. and I keep seeing little blurbs of them. So are there any that your interest is piqued in?
Yes, I'd love to get over to Ireland and do one of the Spartan races in Ireland. For my job, I was traveling to different countries and always trying to find an obstacle race somewhere when I traveled.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I couldn't work those in, other than I did get one in Chicago and one in Boston. That was tied to my work trip, and I did get it was just a regular road half marathon in Ireland a few years ago, so that worked out perfect with my trip. But yeah, I would like to do some obstacle races in Europe. And I was all set to go there last year when I had to cancel that one.
Yeah. Are you doing any road racing still, or are you just strictly the obstacle course racing?
Yeah, I have a few favorites. I really like we have a local turkey trot. And so I do that with my family, because that's the only race out of the year my family will join me. So we go to that. It's at Six Flags, so it's actually runs through the park. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's and they have a massive parking lot, so you get to park right there at the race start. So it's just very, very convenient for us.
Oh, that's
so I do that one, and then there's a mixed road and trail half marathon that I do in my town every January, called the Frozen Feet Half Marathon.
I could see that. It's in January.
Right. So there's only two. Those are the only two races. When I looked at my schedule, what I had been running, those were the only two races I did last year, and the only two I'm planning for next year.
Oh, awesome. How's your training been? Because we've been deferred so many times with races. Are you still same consistent training, or have you weaned it back a little bit? How's that going for you?
Yeah, it's fortunately I have the motivation to really train.
Yeah.
And unfortunately at times that could be a bad thing, because I may be training too much. And what I found out was when I'm regularly racing, it's typically 2 obstacle course race weekends in a month.
Yeah.
And so I do my training, and then I start tapering, the 5 days or so before the race.
Yeah. So
that's my recovery time, and then I'll have the race weekend, and then maybe take one recovery day after that, and I jump right back into it.
Yeah.
But with the races canceling, what I found out is since the end of February, I've been working out like crazy every week, and thinking, okay, there's a race coming up, I'll taper off when that gets here, and then a few weeks before the race it cancels, and so I just keep working out. And so what I found was I'm not getting any kind of rest. I need to force myself to take that rest.
Yeah, I was just saying, are you forcing yourself to rest because you're just so focused on training?
Right.
I saw that in the notes here that you have some obstacles in your backyard. What all have you built?
It's well, I had to get my deck replaced, and it's about 30 feet long, 16 feet wide, and it's I have a full walkout basement, so it's basically like a perfect rig structure to have right in place there. So I have all these eye bolts everywhere, and I've hung up a set of rings, some gibbons, I have a steel pipe, to traverse there, and some other baseballs and nunchucks, and so
that's great.
I'm adding things periodically, and trying to get better at the different kind of obstacles. I had a few of them inside it for a while, not nearly enough space. But the biggest challenge for me in the obstacle race is what happens when they're wet. Or they're icy, and so now I have something I can leave them hang out there in the rain, and then get some practice in while all the objects are wet.
Yeah, that really changes your grip and your focus when you have to deal with wet obstacles. We deal with it up here all the time, and it's definitely a challenge. Are there any obstacles like in Spartan Race that you have as a favorite, and ones that you just are like, oh, I don't want to, but I'm going to do it anyways? Like, some people have their favorites, some have their ones that they don't like doing, but it's a Spartan Race, you still do them.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything I really hate. The one that I find most challenging, is the spear throw. Just because I can practice, for weeks and weeks and weeks, I feel really good at home, and I get out at the race, and then I miss. and so that one can be really frustrating. And I notice even the top athletes are missing on occasion. So it's a bit of a wild card.
It is.
So that's the one. Even though I can, at home I can hit, 19 out of 20 or maybe 48 out of 50, and I get on the race and I hit one, and I'm still excited. Okay, good, because I know I've missed enough in the races that 30 burpees, boy, that's not fun at all. So
no, it's not.
So maybe that's the obstacle I hate the most, is the 30 burpees.
The 30 burpees, yeah, I think that's everybody's their love-hate relationship with burpees.
Does your business need first aid, AED, OSHA, flagging, or other safety training? James Safety Services is your one-stop shop. Find them on Facebook today at James Safety Services WA and ask for a quote on hosting your training needs.
Do you think with the spear throw, is it partly because, we're all practicing in our backyard, so there's really there's no normal distractions or noises or anything kind of going on? Do you think that plays a factor in the spear throw for people? If they're not used to having everybody around, other people throwing at the same time?
Yeah, maybe that's some of it, and I guess that's the part I haven't been able to simulate yet. Right? Because my son and I have been doing some workouts since he's home from college for an extended time because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But he likes to go out when we're done working out, immediately go out back and throw some spears. So that's good, because now you're tired. You've been working out, and then you walk out back and throw some spears. And I've also worked it into, whenever I run around the neighborhood, I'll just immediately run to the backyard, throw some spears. While I'm winded, So I can simulate that aspect, but not with the crowd watching you,
Yeah. Has your family, like you said that you guys do the turkey trot, the once a year, have they done any Spartans? Have they been wanting to participate? How does your family interact with it? Because it's obviously a huge part of your life, which makes it a part of theirs. How does that interact?
Right. Well, my son certainly, uses the obstacles I have in the backyard. But I did talk my wife and son into doing the what's called the Crusher Race in Eureka, Missouri. So that's not far from my house, and so they both did that. It's a non-competitive race, but it had some pretty interesting obstacles. A lot of running. It was a 5K or a 10K option to it.
Yeah.
But there were some pretty good obstacles in that, and they both completed it.
Oh,
And
perfect.
my wife said never again. My son said, yeah, he'd like to do one. So he actually did go out to that one, the last Battleground Mud Run we had. He went out to it was kind of an open house where you could go try out some of the obstacles before the race weekend. He didn't do the race, but he did go to the open house and enjoyed that aspect of it. So he definitely wants to join me sometime.
Oh, perfect. Yay. Gotta get the family involved. Do you have, so you run mostly the competitive. Do you ever run open very often and just like be a part of, because the open heats are totally different than the competitive heats. The competitive is just, you're focused, but the open heats seem to have more of the team building, I guess, and being with people and helping people out. Do you go and run those, or do you stay mostly competitive?
Well, I do competitive whenever I can, but if the opportunity comes up, you know, just like in at the Savage Race in Chicago on Saturday, you know, I did the pro wave, you know, so that's the 10K distance.
Yeah.
And it was really hot, but I had also signed up for the for a second lap, and that was open, of course.
Yeah.
But the open is, you know, I probably did, you know, dozens of competitive obstacle races, you know, like especially Spartan, before I ever ran an open wave race.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's nice to get out there at times and just kind of take it all in and enjoy the scenery, and, you know, maybe try different things on obstacles you wouldn't want to do racing.
Yeah.
You know, and then talk the social aspects. Wow, you know, even though there can be a good bit of talking in the competitive waves, depending on where you are in the course.
Yeah.
You know, I just love talking to people in the open waves, and I can talk the whole time. I'll just, you know, anytime I run by somebody, I'll say something to them, and, you know, conversation starts up, maybe I'll you know, stay with them a bit.
Yeah, that sounds like a typical open heat.
Yes.
What have you been placing? Because you run competitive, your age group is, you know, more condensed, I guess would be the best way to put it, like limited amount of people. How is that affecting like your placements and stuff? I mean,
yeah, last year I was in the 50 to 54 group, and you know, when I started doing, and that's when I hit the Spartans big time last year. When I started the year, I didn't think I would ever hit the podium. You know, but then I, you know, for age group.
Yeah.
But then I did the Montana race, and I ended up taking first place out there in my age group, and I was just so excited. And then I ended up, I guess I probably hit the podium 7 times last year.
Oh, that's amazing, especially when you didn't think that was in your grasp, and to have it just be like, I can do it and I've got it. That's incredible. Is there a goal when it comes to competitive now? Are you wanting to do more and get more into like the pro side, or just kind of stay in the age group and where you're at now?
I'll definitely, you know, being 55, I'm definitely where I belong in the age group.
Yeah.
Although I do compare myself at times, you know, and say, well, if I ran that time in the elite, where would I fall? You know.
Yeah.
And generally, I'm not last, so. But you know, the conditions could be different at that time. But you know, Big Bear is an example. Last year, they sold out an age group before I signed up, so I ended up signing up for elite, and then you know, before the race got here, they opened up some more age group spots, so I was able to switch out.
Perfect.
You know, and I know you have to qualify this year to make elite. For the Spartan.
Yes.
But in terms of you know, this year I've done 8 competitive races, and I hit the podium 6 times.
Oh, that's
so what
great.
you said, you know, my age group pool's getting smaller, and some of the people I would consistently lose to in the 50 to 54 group, you know, I aged out of that. They haven't followed me yet. So far things are looking really good for this year.
How long do you think you're going to continue to do this? Because I've seen people out there who, I've met a lady in Washougal, Washington. I think she was 80 and she was out there and she was still racing. Like, do you feel this is really improving your health when it comes to, because you're so active, you're still doing things, and, you know, injuries aside, as long as they're not too bad or anything like that, how long do you think you're going to continue to race?
Oh, as long as I
As you
can. The good thing is, I got to meet a lot of different racers, and there's a lot of racers in their 60s and 70s, and they're out there all the time. When all the big races I go to, so it's good to see them out there. So there's, in my mind, there's no reason I can't go another 10 or 15 years with this.
Perfect. So you ran the road races and everything else. Have you always been a runner, or did you pick that up as you got older? Where did that start happening for you?
Yeah, I was really in college. I was in Air Force ROTC. We had to do these running tests, so we had some training for it. So that's the first time I ever really picked up running just for the sake of running.
Yeah.
And then when I remember when I got out of college and worked for a couple of years, and it seemed like I was just gaining weight because I wasn't as active as I was, and so I thought I'd start running again, and I remember that first time I ran, probably maybe 23, 24, first time I ran in a few years, and I could barely get around the block, a quarter mile and I was dead.
Yeah.
and that really shocked me. That was a big wake-up call. It's like, I cannot believe I'm that out of shape. And so then I just started picking up, and ever since then I've running has just been a regular part of my working out.
Have you thought about doing, like, because I know they have like the trail ultras and other trail races that aren't necessarily obstacle course racing. Have you thought about doing any of those, or are you just going to stick with obstacle course racing?
I'll do a trail race if the opportunity comes up. I was out in Seattle, last year. Was at the April. I think that was one of the first trail runs.
It was April.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, it was April. We had really bad weather, I think, one day, and the day of the trail race, it was actually decent weather. That's our weather out here. So
yeah, I think I ended up with hypothermia during that race, during the Spartan race.
Yep.
and for the trail run, I actually wore, I don't know if you ever remember seeing any photos, but I was a guy wearing this yellow rain poncho running the trail run.
Yep.
Because I was shivering the whole time.
Yeah, the trail race, I did that one too, because like it was the first trail race, and I loved it. I thought they did a really great job of they still kept it technical and complicated, but it was fun to get through it without having the obstacles, except at the very end. But I really liked the trail race. I'm glad they've added a few more lengths to it, which I'm looking forward to doing those at some point. Seattle, I love hearing how the other races are when it comes to weather and the difficulties dealing with that and the terrain, because Seattle the spring race has always been, it's a soul sucker. I don't know how else to put it. Like you're lucky if your shoes don't get stuck in the mud and have to pull them out. Like the cold and everything else. I noticed Spartan does not have Seattle on the spring list right now, just in the fall, which we tend to have better weather. But I liked how challenging that spring race was, because you have to fight the elements and yourself and the obstacles. So it really kind of like, it was a trifecta of everything you have to get through, like grit wise. Right. So what are your thoughts on the different like terrains and the weather and everything else? Is there an area that you like a little bit more because it seems a little bit more difficult, or?
Well, not having ever spent a lot of time in the desert, growing up in the South and living in the Midwest and the Northeast, I just love desert running. So that Phoenix race, Laughlin, those Spartans there, I just love that terrain, and especially Phoenix, because it's a lot of short up and downs and winding trail, So
Yeah.
nothing crazy as far as elevation, but it's just constant up and down
Up and downs. Yeah.
and turning. I just, in that desert environment, I just love it.
I would like to do one of those. I did Dallas a couple years ago, and I absolutely loved the terrain there. It was challenging, and their hills weren't like, I'm used to more of like our hills up here, and they're pretty challenging. I'm like, that's not too bad. I could do that. That reminds me of the Washougal race. So the hills they were challenging, but they weren't as much as I thought they were, because they were more like rolling. And I loved Dallas just for the terrain alone. Like, you were running through creeks, you were going up hills, you were dealing with sloppy mud. I don't know how else to put it. It's not the mud that you get sucked in, it's mud you slide on. So it was great to see that kind of terrain. And I loved Dallas for that, just because the terrain was so different. And I can see where the desert could be challenging. Was there a lot of heat when you were there, or was it a little bit more mild?
It was mild. It's
Mild.
in February.
Definitely
so
mild.
3 years in a row. That was my very first Spartan. It was 2 years ago. Then I did it last year, and of course early this year. So 3 years in a row. It was on the cold side. The first year and this year. And in fact, this year was really interesting because generally it seems like the elite waves get the better conditions, right? Because it's generally cooler weather, which is better in most of the time.
Yeah.
And I've been to a number of races where it started raining after the early waves go, and so now we're that particular race was clearly a disadvantage for the elite men and elite women because there was frost on the obstacles.
Oh.
and the sun was just rising, so by the time I went through, the age groups got through, things were dry, with the exception of maybe the water cups. You grab a cup of water and it would have ice across the top.
It's just cool water.
Right. But it was really interesting, and watching the elites go by, especially something like the rings, because I had never seen an elite racer chicken wing across the rings before.
Oh, I saw that in Seattle this last year. I'm like, what are you doing? Because I saw the hook and the chicken wing. I'm like, I've never seen that in my life.
So that made me really nervous about the obstacles, as I was in the starting corral ready to go, and thinking, if they're chicken wing across the rings, what's the rest of the obstacles like? But fortunately, by the time I was there, everything was dry and no problem at all.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I found that interesting too, to see them chicken winging. I've never seen that before. And I was like, how do you not get your arm stuck? Like, I don't understand this. Like, it confused me. I sat there probably a good 15 minutes in Seattle watching them just go through, and that whole, like you said, it's that chicken wing. I'm like, I don't get this. But they got through it. I guess that's just part of learning how to adjust to the weather, to the conditions, and everything else with races. So it's a good way to adjust, I guess.
Yeah. It's, the weather event could make or break, your placement. So
yes, it definitely can. Does your family travel with you at all, or they just kind of stay back and let you travel? Or
no, my wife will travel a good bit. My daughter's married, with a child and in a job, so she can't travel with me as much. And my son's finishing up college. But my wife will join me certainly at any of the warm weather locations. Somewhere interesting to go, she'll definitely join along.
She'll join you. That's awesome. Yeah. Because you run competitive, but do you have a team or anybody that you kind of help train with, or you just train all on your own?
There's a few athletes in the area that I do occasionally run with or meet up with at a local obstacle gym. I've had some invitations to go over to their house. Some people set up some obstacles in their basement or in their backyard. So I haven't done that part yet, but definitely met up with others for local gym training, trail running.
Trail running. Perfect.
Swimming
Yeah.
across the river, whatever.
Yeah.
Cold water dips in the winter.
Oh, burr. Yeah. Not a fan of those. With the pandemic and everything going on, you're still training. Is there like anything that you want to say to help keep people motivated? Because I know that's going to be a big challenge for a lot of people. Racing is like for me, it's their outlet. It's how they work through things, and that's kind of hard when you lose that motivation. Like, oh, I got a race coming up and I'm pushing and I'm pushing and pushing. But when they're suddenly gone, and like, yeah, there's next year, but that's a huge gap between now and next year. That's a good, 6 months before we kind of hit that. And is there any words of advice or anything that you could think of, like to motivate? Like, I know you're very self-motivated, but to help keep people going, is there any advice you have?
Yeah, I think just find other people with your interests, with your passions. A couple of years ago, I discovered Meetup. So if you look on Meetup, it's just a way to get people together for whatever activity, and you can search for things like obstacle racing or trail running. So I found a great group of people to do some trail running with, and that really keeps me motivated. It's great to meet up with other people with your interests.
Yeah.
So far, hardly any of the trail runners are actually obstacle course racers as well. But I do find some on occasion that have at least done one or two or three before.
Yeah.
But still, the biggest obstacle for me is really the trail running part.
Yeah.
So I need to get that trail running training in. And then it seems like obstacle gyms are becoming more popular. And one just opened in my town probably a year and a half ago. It's now convenient. The closest one before was about 45-minute drive away.
Yeah.
So that helps a lot. And you can, again, meet a whole new group of people. You can learn some new techniques. You can, kind of have a regular scheduled time if you want to go do some of those workouts.
That's perfect.
And there's also really what motivates me is to kind of stay working with some other people.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's I guess it's okay to say I do a lot of beach body workouts.
Yeah, that's fine.
P90X3, P90X, hammer and chisel, lift 4. And to me, they're just a great way to keep yourself motivated to get through the workout.
Yeah.
You hit play and you just want to keep up with everybody.
Yeah.
Even though they can't see you, it's like, okay, I got to keep up with these other people working out.
There's still a competition there.
Right. It's like, well, if that person can do it for 30 minutes, I can.
Exactly. Where can we find you, like on social media? I know that you have an Instagram. What's your Instagram handle?
Yeah, it's under Aaron Coffman, but I know there's a little more to it than that.
Well, I know
I should have had that ready.
We'll post it in the link. And you're an ambassador for Honey Stinger, am I correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I've used the Honey Stinger products for many, many years in my marathon running, the road running, with the trail running, and then I thought I'd apply for the ambassadorship and was accepted, and so it's I use their products every race, and very happy with the Honey Stinger. And it's good to be part of the Honey Stinger hive. There's some more camaraderie there, and
that's awesome.
It's all good stuff.
So how long have you been an ambassador for Honey Stinger?
Just starting this year. So
this year?
Yeah, earlier this year.
Awesome. Is there anybody else that you're ambassador with, or that you promote or enjoy?
Yeah, with Orange Mud for the hydration vests. Yeah, I met the owner at one of the Spartan races, and I'd been looking around for a hydration pack because I had another pack from a brand. I won't say what, but my very first obstacle race with it, I climbed the 8-foot wall and ended up tearing it. And I was like, oh no. This is my first race with this pack, and I broke it.
Oh no!
So I kind of just patched it together and used it for my training. But I wanted to get a better pack, and so I started looking around, and I really liked the Orange Mud product, and so I bought a couple of packs, and then I talked to the owner some, and I asked him if he had any kind of ambassadorships, and sure enough he did. So I applied and was accepted, and so I'm promoting that brand as well.
That's awesome. So just to kind of wrap things up, and again, like you said, keep them motivated, find people to work out with. I guess with your handle, are you pretty active on your Instagram, or is it just kind of as you race?
Yeah, I'm much more active with Facebook.
Facebook. Okay.
Right, and then I've started using Instagram this year, so I'm still in the ramp up phase for using it. But
figuring that one out.
Yeah, I do regularly post on it. Some videos, some photos, some training events, some race events. But most of my actual race photos, I put on the Facebook side, and probably more of my training, I put on the Instagram side.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me, coming on and tell me about your experience with your 70th race and your future of racing. I really appreciate it. Look forward to hopefully seeing you out in Seattle again at some point.
I was going to be there for the National Series race.
Right. Yeah. Of course, that's not happening. Hopefully next year, though. Woo!
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. Good talking with you.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook, like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear.